Gentle Marketers. Welcome to episode 96 of the Gentle Business Revolution podcast, a show where we talk about marketing your business by disrupting the current marketing paradigm and changing it to a gentler approach, one that's based on empathy and kindness. As always, you know now that I'm Sarah Zinacroce and I'm the host here, and you know that you're in the right place if you are a heart-centered entrepreneur or change maker who is looking for a much better way to market your business. Or you might also be a marketing impact pioneer, so someone who's working in a small business or an organization who does business for good. Today's conversation fits the second P of the Gentle Marketing Mandala, the P that stands for personal power. And if you're a regular here, you know that I'm organizing the conversations around the 7 Ps of the Gentle Marketing Mandala. And if you're new here and you have no idea what I'm talking about, you can download your one-page marketing plan with the Gentle Marketing version of the 7 Ps of marketing at sarahzinacroce.com/one-page, number 1 and then page. And yes, it does come with 7 email prompts to really help you reflect on these different Ps. So before we dive in, allow me to tell you again about the Gentle Business Circle that's coming up on July 14th and invite you to join us for free if you'd like to just check it out. The circle is a hive mind of gentle marketers who get together on a monthly call to discuss gentle marketing and business questions. So imagine being authentically you. You show up as your true self in your marketing, not some prescribed version of who you should be in order to get clients. No more masks. Imagine doing the right thing, because as a gentle marketer, integrity is everything. And your clients love you for that and seek you out because they trust you to always tell them the truth. Imagine doing good and getting paid. Your clients resonate with you and tell you, it's you I want to work with. And finally, imagine contributing to making this world a better place. You're growing a business that financially supports you, helps others, and makes an impact in this world. That's our common goal in the Gentle Business Circle. The circle is an intimate and global community of gentle marketers. It's a calm space to hang out with like-minded, conscious entrepreneurs and help each other build our business and grow our impact. By exchanging knowledge, skills, and experiences, we develop our individual and our collective competency. We develop also cooperation and trust. And we really work on our professional identity. Our next circle call, as I said, is coming up on Wednesday, July 14th. And if you'd like to try it out, you can send me an email at sarah@sarahzinacroce.com and I'll send you our Zoom link. You can also go to sarahzinacroce.com/circle to find some more details about these calls. And yeah, we'd love to have you on this call on July 14th. Okay, so today is about the second P of the Gentle Marketing Mandala, and this one stands for personal power. And our topic today is about reframing your relationship to failure. So it clearly has to do with personal power. My guest today, Heather Thorkelson, is an entrepreneur through and through. There's no going back to a 9-to-5 job for her. For me either. But she's also been through a few failures, and she's here to talk about what she's learned through her journey. Heather is a Canadian business coach and consultant living in rural Sweden. She has been living internationally for almost 3 decades and working as a coach for Incurable Entrepreneurs since 2010. She also owns a boutique polar travel agency, Twin Tracks Expeditions, as well as co-owns an Arctic ship management company. Her first book, No Plan B, a handbook for incurable entrepreneurs and other rebellious souls, was published in October 2020 and is quickly becoming a go-to resource for business owners who can never go back to the 9-to-5. In our conversation, we talk about Heather's own relationship to failure, how to deal with the negative voice in your head, Heather's take on getting outside the comfort zone to succeed, and then also towards the end, we really feel like our values are aligned about marketing. And so I ask her about her ethical approach to marketing. So without further ado, let's listen to this conversation with Heather and me. Hey, Heather, so good to talk to you today.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here, Sarah.
Yeah, thanks for reaching out. I always say there's only very select few people that actually, pitch me to be on the podcast. And I'm like, oh, this is a good fit. And most of them just go in the trash. And I'm like, please do your homework. So
totally.
Thanks so much for actually, being specific. And so, I can tell we have a lot of things already in common. So this will be a good chat for sure.
Yeah.
But we kind of identified this topic. As you know, I organized conversations around the 7 Ps of gentle marketing. And so we decided that this one would fit under the personal power, because we want to talk about failure. It's like this big F word, right? Like, oh no. So probably the first question I want to ask you is like, what is your relationship to failure? What have you failed? Maybe if I can just be that direct. And then what's your relationship?
What have I not failed at is the question. My relationship with failure is that it's a sort of essential part of the journey. It's an essential part of my personal growth. It's an essential part of my business growth. If I'm not failing a bit here and there, then I'm not learning how to do things better, right? Mm-hmm. And certainly, I'm 42 now. If you had asked me in my 20s, I would have had a different answer. But with age comes a little bit more experience and wisdom. And I really, generally speaking, have a good relationship with failure, because at some point along the line, I disassociated the judgment of failure with what failure actually is. So when I or my business or something that I do fails, I don't immediately think, oh, I'm a failure, or I suck, or I did something wrong. I have sort of a more scientific approach to it, in that if something didn't work out, then I didn't have the right data to make that decision or to go in that direction. What is the data telling me now? And so it's evolved over time, but I feel like I have quite a healthy relationship. And that's not to say that failure doesn't sting sometimes, but I'm usually able to bounce back quite quickly and just go, okay, reorient. Where do we go now?
I guess the fact that you're still in business after how many years?
Oh gosh, it's 10 years now. I started in 2011. So,
yeah. As an entrepreneur, I think if you're not learning how to deal with failure, then you're probably not made for this. And
nope.
You need to go back to just a regular job. And that's kind of what your book is about as well, right? We'll get to that. But when I looked up the definition of failure, it was also saying basically it's the lack of success. Mm-hmm. And so that made me think of, in my book, I talk about this definition of success that I think is so important as an entrepreneur if we go out there, in order not to be, bombarded and manipulated by all these things that we should be doing because we think this is the mainstream definition of success. So do they also go hand in hand for you? And have you spent time thinking about your definition of success?
Absolutely, 100%. In fact, my first brand that I started out with back 10 years ago was called Republic of Freedom. And it was a coaching company, but it was around the idea that everyone has the opportunity to create their own ecosystem that helps them thrive, right? Your own Republic of Freedom. So if you want to step into the world of entrepreneurship, you really need to think, well, what does my Republic of Freedom look like? What does success mean to me? What does financial security mean to me? What does work-life balance mean to me? All that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so from day one, I was always thinking about what success means. And I think it's different for everybody, right? Mm-hmm. So for me, success on a personal level is that I have everything that I need to thrive. I don't attach dollar amounts to that so much on a personal level. I think, am I healthy? Am I happy? Do I have everything I need and then some? Do I have agency over my time, which is huge for me? Or is someone else like pulling the strings on my time or pulling me in different directions? Huge. That as long as I'm thriving personally, that to me is okay. I'm in a successful zone and I can just go up from there, push myself as much as I want to. From a business perspective, success means that I'm achieving the outcomes that I set out, that I put out there that I want to do. And, I'm still in business 10 years later and I have 2 other businesses. So I'm not doing so terrible at it.
Congrats. Yeah. And you brought up this idea of kind of defining your enough. And you and I both know of Paul Jarvis. And that's where I first heard it, really, this idea of thinking what is enough for you, because we're always told to, maximize and optimize and all this like bigger, bigger, bigger. But if you never actually define your enough, you always think you need more than you actually need. So I think it's really essential for people to start with that and really look at, well, how much do I need to not just, thrive? Okay, that's the next level, but how much do I need to survive?
Yeah.
Start there. And then depending on your lifestyle, that's how you define your success, however much extra you need. But if we don't have that enough number, then we're just being sold someone else's dream, right?
Totally. You're being sold on the 6 and 7 figure launches and all this stuff, which are never as clear cut as what you think they are. You're always being sold on someone else's idea of what you should be achieving. Or, I've been in business X amount of time. So-and-so is a millionaire and I'm not. Like, there's like these benchmarks and, knowing what is enough for you is great. I would also say that an important part of the journey for me, because I'm super ambitious, is not trying to achieve these lofty goals tomorrow. So I knew what my enough was, had an idea of what my level of thriving was, but I was never like, I'm going to become a 7-figure entrepreneur by the time I'm 40 or something, I've never had that. I'm like, I'm going to show up and I'm going to do an amazing job. I'm going to show up for my clients the best way that I can. And I'm going to let my business grow based on constantly staying true to myself and navigating those waters and not getting trapped into the shiny object stuff. Because to me, if you're in it for the long game, which I am, I'm an incurable entrepreneur, that level of success, it'll come. It'll come because I show up, I'm consistent. I'm not selling any kind of snake oil. I'm providing real transformation for the people and the peers and the different interest groups and stuff that I work with across my 3 businesses. I'm staying true to what I do. And that really makes a big difference. The success will come. We don't need to be in a race to, have a private jet, I think.
I like this fact that you don't put yourself under a certain pressure, because also, again, we're comparing different things. Like, there's also the periods of your life that you're in. What if you're in a big move, or you're in a divorce, or you're having small kids? All of these things matter. But if you only compare yourself with the successful entrepreneurs, well, you're not really looking at their specific situation.
Exactly.
So give yourself some, show some self-compassion and say, well, I'll get there. But, at my own time, let me deal with, what other things are part of my life right now. I think that is so key.
Totally. Yeah. And you also never know what kind of support people have, right? I mean, I remember looking back a few years ago, I was looking at someone who was doing really well online, and she had 2 small children during the launch of a huge program and a book and all this stuff. And I was just like, I don't have any kids. I don't have anyone like bothering me for my time except my dog. And like,
how does she do that?
What am I doing? Like, how am I wasting all my time? But also, when I looked closer, I was like, she's got a massive team. Also, she's been doing this forever. She didn't just hatch out of an egg like that. She existed as an entrepreneur for like 15 years prior to getting to this level. It's just that I didn't see her until she was at that level. And I was like, how does she do it with small kids and this? I'm like, a huge team and tons of money for marketing, So like, that's an important thing as well. And as you say, self-compassion, being gentle with yourself, I always say, eyes on your own paper. Don't worry about what other people are doing. It's actually super irrelevant. If it's making you feel bad or making you feel like you're not enough, just come back here, eyes on your own paper, and be gentle with yourself, because we're all doing the best that we can with the tools that we have at any given time.
And like you said, we only see the tip of the iceberg. We're like all these years before, sure, probably there's the exception where, this person just becomes a millionaire overnight, but that's not the usual story.
No.
Yeah. So let's talk about your book. So you've written a book called No Plan B, and on your website, you say the truth is that for people like us, there is no plan B. For people like us, there is no option of defaulting back to a job. For people like us, your work is an extension of who you are. So do you feel that for lifers like us, we really have this different perspective of what it means to fail? And like you said, you're an incurable entrepreneur. So meaning, there's nothing you'd rather be doing than failing over and over again.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%. And I've never had a fail in business that made me think, I should just go back to a job. Like, I have never thought that. And it's because
actually, I have thought that. I have to admit, I have thought that, but it's like this split second, and then you're like, oh my God, no, are you crazy?
Yeah. Totally. Yeah, maybe a split second, but then you're just like, what am I talking about? That's crazy.
Right.
So yeah, it's a box that I can't fit in. I have in the past, I've had lots of jobs. I've worked all over the world. Sweden is the 7th country outside of Canada where I'm from that I've lived in long term. And I've worked in all those different countries that I've been in lots of different capacities. And I do the opposite of thrive when I'm in the structure of the working world, of the 9 to 5. I wish that I fit in, because my life would be a lot easier, a lot more structured. I could just go to work and come home and have a life. But instead I'm, juggling all these different things because of the life that I've really had no choice to be in, as an incurable entrepreneur. But I do think that lifers like us, I do think that in general, we have a different relationship to failure, and the longer that we're doing it, the more we evolve in that way. And the main thing is that we become or are more resilient, right? Mm-hmm. We experience those like things not working out, and we deal with it, and then we bounce back and we keep going. And so in my experience, working with the clients that I work with, things are like, when things go wrong, they don't fall apart. They're just like, oh, it's frustrating, it's annoying. Often if you're the person at the center of it, you can't see the forest for the trees. And so you're like talking to your business coach or your friend or whatever, like, what happened here? Like, why did my launch flop or whatever, But we don't spend a lot of time crying over it or feeling like a failure. We're just like, okay, all right. Okay. So what's next, And I think that's really cool. Like that's one of the reasons I love working with incurable entrepreneurs, because this is the road you've chosen. There's no time, or there's very little time to sort of feel sorry for yourself or feel like things aren't going well, because this is how you make your living. So, have a 24-hour, like, feel like garbage for 24 hours, and then like, let's reorient and keep on going, because this is your life. This is your livelihood, right?
Right. Yeah. What is going through my head as you say that is like, well, yes, you and I, we both have 10 plus years experience. And so we've gotten to that point. However, the question is like the chicken and the egg. Well, how do you get to that point? Like, if you're just starting out, you're like in year 1 and things are just like falling apart or nothing is working. So it's not just by experience that you become this person. It's really like, in my opinion, it's also character-based or personality-based, right? Which is also why we often see that it's not for everybody. And I think that's a good thing that it's not. We also still need people who do the 9 to 5 jobs, and it's just not for everybody to be an entrepreneur. So what would you say to someone who's just starting out? Because the advice is not the same. It's like, well, yeah, things are tough when you're just starting out. So hang in there, you'll get there. Or if this is really destroying you, then maybe it's not for you. Like, how would you talk?
Yeah. I mean, I definitely would say that. I find that this is one of the things that I find interesting about those like huge courses that are like, take your passion and turn it into a business, you know, and they're just sort of mass marketed to everybody.
Right.
I went through one of those in 2011 and with hundreds, possibly thousands of people. And like the amount of people who are still business owners today is like this many people.
Right.
And it's because of what you said. So many people love the idea of the dream, but they're not actually the right people to be entrepreneurs, because it's not, if you're not cut out for it, if you don't have certain personal leanings or certain personal fortifications, like being resilient or dealing with adversity or dealing with uncertainty, all that kind of thing, you might not be cut out for it. And that is 100% okay. It is 100% okay if you've bought the dream that someone was selling you and then found that this doesn't fit and it's too difficult and it's too hard. It's not a judgment call either way. It's just that some people feel like I do, which is, this is my zone, you know, I'm cool with it. Even when failure was way harder 10 years ago, I was like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I will feel better about this in 5 years. Like that was always my mentality. Like, it's super hard now. It won't be as hard next year. It won't be as hard the year after. And things that I find hard now, I'm like, in 2025, this will be nothing, you know? And so that orientation as well, if you're listening to this episode, you know, be really honest with yourself and ask yourself, like, how am I handling these early stages of my business? What are the thoughts going through my brain? Is it terrifying / exciting, or is it terrifying, defeating? Going back to a job actually doesn't feel like such a bad idea, you know?
Yeah.
And also, again, like, removing judgment, going back to a job is not a bad thing. It's not like you're not cooler if you're an entrepreneur. This is all about creating the conditions you need to thrive, right? And if a traditional job didn't work, see if you can find something that allows you to be working for a company, but be location independent, so that you have more like agency over your time and your day, right?
Yeah. And you know, you reminded me of the other thing that we have in common, which is like this mass marketing and manipulating and then even almost shaming people for not succeeding, right? That's what happens with these huge programs where everybody goes through it, and then they have one poster child and it's like, oh, look, she became a millionaire. And so people end up feeling like, oh, it's probably my fault that I didn't succeed because these other people did. So that whole setup is just horrible, right?
It is. It's shame inducing. And I think it's really important to say this as well, because I've been in this game long enough and I know enough of those huge like entrepreneurs who have the big courses and have like multiple offerings and masterminds and VIP days and stuff. I can tell you from experience and from seeing the back end of some of those businesses that it's a numbers game. That's it. It's a numbers game. When you've had 5,000 people go through your program and you have 10 people who made it to 6 figures, those are the only 10. And those are the ones that you're highlighting on your website. There's another 4,900 and whatever that are at varying degrees of business, and some people not in business at all. So it's just a numbers game, you know, and I think it's important to have some perspective around that, because it's so easy to feel shame by looking at what people are promising and feeling like you didn't do it, or feeling like other people who started when you did are doing so much better. It's smoke and mirrors, you know?
Yeah. And the other term that came to mind is sustainability. Like that seems to be your thing as well. It's like, well, I'm in it for the long term. And so these number games don't work because you have to continue to hustle. Yeah. If you're always counting on numbers, well, that means that you have 4,999 unhappy clients and one poster child. So guess what? You have to keep hustling to get more people go through your program. And it's just not a way to create a sustainable business.
No, certainly not for me.
Yeah. I'd like to bring up this other idea of the comfort zone. Don't know why I associated it with failure. I guess because we're often told you have to get out of your comfort zone or like push more in order to succeed. So what's your approach about this idea of the comfort zone?
I think that the the stuff that we hear on the internet about pushing yourself out of your comfort zone tends to be, in my opinion, too aggressive. I think that people feel like they have to go really outside of their comfort zone. Like they don't like being on video, but you should be on TikTok, get out of your comfort zone. It's like, well, I think that it is important for personal growth and for business growth to figure out where your edges are, the edges of your comfort zone, and push those edges a little bit. As you've said, be gentle with yourself, be compassionate, push those edges a little bit, because that is how we grow. That is how we step into the next version of ourselves. But you don't have to leap into the next state, like you don't have to make it this massive thing. You don't have to do something that's wildly uncomfortable for you. You can, but you don't have to, right? You can do a TED Talk when you're afraid of public speaking. That's great, but you don't have to do it. There are other ways to do that. And I've found that a lot of me stepping out of my comfort zone has been on that smaller scale. So to give you an example, for the longest time, I thought my recorded voice, this is weird, but I thought that I sounded really manly, like masculine. Mm-hmm. And so every time I heard my voice recorded, and I mean, this is going back to pre sort of internet days when I'd hear myself on a cassette tape because I'm old, I would be like, oh, I sound like such a dude. Oh, I hate my voice. And then I realized, a few years ago that I really liked podcasting. And so I liked listening to podcasts. I had ideas to start my own podcast. So I started a podcast, and the first few I listened to, I was like, I hate my voice. Oh, it makes me so uncomfortable to hear my voice, but I really like the medium. And then somewhere along the way of podcasting a lot, I was like, what was my problem? There's nothing wrong with my voice. I don't sound like a man, And in fact, I've gotten a lot of compliments for my speaking style and the way that I interview people and things like that. And so that kind of little thing, right? Of, I feel uncomfortable. And then just pushing my way through it, because what was on the other side was something that felt meaningful and a good way to push myself. That was worth it. And I think those are the kinds of ways that we should think about stepping outside of our comfort zone.
It sounds like it's a good thing to do when you enjoy it, actually. And it's not someone else telling you, or again, almost shaming you that you're never going to grow if you're not stepping outside. That to me is an immediate trigger. It's like,
red flag.
Tell me what to do. I'm going to decide. And if I think it's a good thing, I'll work on it. But you don't tell me what to do.
Oh, totally. Yeah. I often say to people, when you're trying to decide for your business where you want to be on social media, for example, do not hang out in a social media platform that you don't like being on.
Yeah.
No matter what anyone says. Yeah. Pick one space. You don't even need to pick 2 or 3. Just pick one that you actually enjoy being on, and then do that one really well. And then decide if you want to branch out from there. But the minute someone tells you should do something, red flag.
It's a trigger, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I want to read something else that you have on your website, because one thing made me giggle, and the other thing, we can talk more about the kind of the bro marketing stuff. So you have a warning at the bottom of your site, and it says, my consulting services are not compatible with anyone who wants to build a lifestyle empowerment brand, nor who want to jam customer prospects into their sales funnel and collect cash on the other end, nor who believe that manifesting is a business strategy. So it's the manifesting part that made me giggle, just because I guess, it's a value statement. It's like, here's my worldview. I often talk to my gentle marketers about, bringing more of you to your marketing, bringing more of your worldview, your values. And that clearly states, look, I'm not one of those woo-woo manifest your dream kind of people. And so it's very clear, right?
Yep.
It states that very clearly. And then the other thing about the, prospects, pushing prospects into sales funnels. So let's talk about that. What's your take on the whole marketing, bro marketing, hype marketing?
Oh, it drives me nuts, obviously, based on that statement. But I'm driven nuts by both ends of the spectrum, which is what I'm trying to really make clear there. And that's why it's on the front of my homepage. I think a lot of people shy away from making value statements like that because they don't want to push people away. Mm-hmm. And I 100% want to push people away. I've had discovery calls with people who are really enamored by and want to implement more of those bro marketing tactics. And I've also had even more so because I'm female, even though I do not market directly to women. I'm not like, I don't have a women focused business. I have a human-centered business owner business. I love working with both men and women, but women tend to find me more because I'm a woman. And so I've had a lot of these discovery calls as well with women who are clearly in the woo-woo camp and clearly into manifesting stuff. And I'm just like, no, I needed something on the homepage that was like, this is where I stand. If you don't fall into any of these buckets, let's talk. Because there are very few people I find that fall in the middle, right? There are very few people, men or women, in the business world, or at least I haven't seen them. There's no huge thought leaders out there that are like really squarely in the middle, or there's very few, where we talk about, you know, doing things ethically, treating people like human beings instead of cash piñatas, right? We treat sales not like ramming our messaging down people's throats, but rather sales and marketing as an invitation to connect further. You know, a lot of the bro marketers would be like, oh, that sounds really like wimpy, you know, and then the manifesting people, I don't know where they're at, but like, I'm a very science focused person in terms of how I approach things like data, like let's look at the data, let's decide what's best. But at the end of the day, I want to make sure that as people are approaching their businesses, that they're honoring their own selves and that they're being respectful and ethical towards the people that they serve. And so that's why that statement is important to me. And I think that so far anyway, since it's been up on my website, it's done a really good job of attracting the right people.
Yeah, that's so important. And it's important because you started with yourself, what gentle marketing is all about. It's like in traditional marketing, we're told to chase after the avatar, you know, the demographics, the psychographics. I'm like, yeah, that's all good. But first figure out who you are and what your worldview is, values, etc., so that you have more fun in your business and you actually only get to talk to people who are aligned with those values. Yeah. Because the same thing happened to me when I was focusing on LinkedIn. People kept coming to me wanting me to, you know, generate leads and spam all their people with these pitches directly after the connection requests. And can you do that for me? Can I outsource all of that for you? I'm like, no, like I don't do that. So yeah, until I finally said enough, I'm going to have to actually put that on my LinkedIn profile, put it on my, because only like that can you actually filter out the people that are just not a good fit. Why waste your time? But I think, again, that comes with confidence and courage to say, I don't want to even bother, you know, even if that means money, I don't want to go there. And that is the ethical part as well, I guess.
Absolutely it is. And I think especially for the people listening that are in the early stages of their business, it is scary.
It is.
Because you need money, right? And when you're coming from a place of scarcity, if you're really dependent on your business and it's just growing and you're like just starting to make revenue, the idea of making any kind of statements that could push away potential income is scary. Mm-hmm. However, anyone who's ever had a nightmare client will know that having a nightmare client because they're not a good fit, because you didn't make that statement clear in the beginning, those people, even if you get their money, they will suck your soul dry. Like it's not worth it in the end, right? Because the mismatch can just take so much emotional energy away from you. And I remember, you know, back in the day where I had a couple of really mismatched clients. And even when I would see the call, like I'd look on my schedule for the next day, I'm like,
dreading the moment.
I'm like, it's going to be like the worst hour of my whole week. And not even because it was terrible, but just because it just felt like suffering to have to like help them, you know? And that it's just not worth it. It's so much better to be really clear on where you stand, because when you're really clear on where you stand, it is like a lighthouse. It's like a beacon for people who are just like you to be like, oh, awesome. You know, this is the coach. Like you are a perfect example of this, Sarah. You have a really specific message. You have a really specific niche. There's a lot of people who will see gentle marketing and go, oh, like immediately get goosebumps and say, that sounds amazing. That's what I need, you know, because it's the antithesis of everything that we see on the internet.
Right. Exactly.
So, you know, you've created this lighthouse for yourself by the way that you've branded and by the approach that you take. And that's just so important. And I will say that for anyone who's in the early days, you might not quite know yet for yourself what that looks like, but just start thinking about it. Start thinking about how you want to show up in the world. And importantly, I always tell this to clients, make a list of the people that you cannot stand working with. You know, like people who are like this, people who are like this, people who think manifesting is a business strategy, you know, because if you're very clear on who you don't want to work with, it makes it much clearer to identify who you do.
Yeah, because it's actually harder to identify who exactly. That's the whole niche problem, right?
Yep.
Like how many clients I worked on, defining their niche, because that's the problem they come with. They're like, everybody tells me I have to have my niche. I'm like, you don't actually, but you have to be very clear who it is you want to work with. Let's start with yourself. Let's figure out who you are in order to then find who resonates with you. But yeah, you're so right. It's that balance between daring to say no to certain clients, or to, just like putting that out there. And it is scary at the beginning. It totally is. The problem is, again, it's the sustainability. If you say yes to those clients who are not a good fit, well, guess what? They're going to tell their friends and their cousins. And then 2 years later, you built a business with the wrong clients. And that's really going to be frustrating.
Yeah. It's so true.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this has been great. I see we have so many things in common, and yeah, it's really this idea of bringing, not just, as you know, for me, it's the word gentle, but I always say it's gentleness is not just it's not just for women, and B, it's not too, being too nice. There is a very fierce aspect to gentle, because we're still standing for something, and we're basically defending integrity. We're defending ethics. And so it's that paradox between, yes, we want to be, gentle, but we're also very firm at the same time. So I see that you have the same kind of approach to business and marketing.
Definitely. And I think hearing you describe it like that, the words that came up for me are compassionate and boundaried. Yeah. Right? Like we can be compassionate, we can have strong boundaries, we can be compassionate to ourselves. We can also be super ambitious. Like we can contain multitudes. I don't even consider myself a particularly like overly nice person or a people pleaser, as a lot of you might think. Like gentle marketers are really sweet and nice and people pleasing and stuff. And I'm sure there's lots of people like that, but there's lots of people that aren't, that still want to be able to exist in this realm that we're talking about, which is not the bro marketing world, and it's not the funnels, and it's not the manifesting. It's the compassionate, boundaried, thoughtful, sustainable, long-term, and ambitious approach.
So how do you think, where do you see the business world 5 years? Now I don't even think in 10 years, because everything is going so fast, changing so fast. So let's say 2 to 5 years, where do you think business is heading?
That's a good question. Like online business, our kind of business?
Yeah, let's start there.
Okay. I would say, I think that at least in the 10 years that I've been doing this, things have changed a lot. People have gotten a lot savvier. There's been lots of different phases that our industry has gone through. Like, it was really cool to create a course for a long time. And then everyone was told to create a community. And then everyone was told to create masterminds. There's sort of this trickle down effect from all the people, the gurus at the top. Mm-hmm. And there will always be new fodder coming in, new young people coming in and buying into that stuff, but it's certainly changing and evolving. And I think that as we have more young people using different platforms that maybe someone like me in my 40s, I'm not interested in using, like TikTok, there will be different elements there as well, right? Because even just influencer type digital marketing has changed so much in the past 10 years. So what is it going to look like in 5 years? I think it's going to be more diverse. I think that people will be even more discerning, and I think that it will be even more important because of all the noise and all of the new trends and all of the this and all of the that and the new generation coming into the digital world. I think we have to be even more clear on who we are, what we want, how we show up, and who we show up for, because it'll be easy to get lost, and it'll be very easy to fall into comparisonitis as well.
Yeah. What I would add is that people really want the truth. They don't want any more BS. They don't want to, they're way smarter now than they were 10 years ago.
Totally.
Talking about the consumers. So they're going to see right through it if you're going to try to shove them through some kind of, sleazy sales funnel. So I think that needs a whole relearning of what we think of marketing.
Yeah.
It's an unlearning almost of the old way. And
it is an unlearning. Yeah. And I think that they want the truth, but also we individually need to focus on being discerning when we're looking at what we want, what we're attracted to, like catch ourselves in those moments of, I'm like, oh, am I being dazzled by this NLP? Like what's happening, because it's easy for that to happen. We have to be discerning, we have to be cautious with who we give our time, money, and energy to. And, there's a lot of people that talk about authentic marketing, but any of these terms can be used and weaponized, right? You can find someone who's like the worst kind of human being and totally trying to treat you like a cash pinata under the guise of authentic marketing. So, what does that even mean, right? And I think for me, having been in this for so long, one of the things that I love the most is when I speak with my clients or people who have been following me for a long time, my newsletter readers, they're like, Heather, you're just real. Like, we know that you're always going to be straightforward. You're going to cut through the BS. And when I've been at conferences and stuff pre-pandemic and people met me in real life, they're like, you are exactly how you are in real life as you are in your writing. And I wrote my book, of course, and then I sent a copy to a mentor of mine who I reference in the book. And he messaged me a few days later and he's like, I love reading your book because it's like hearing you talk. Like it's exactly how I can hear your inflection. I can hear everything. And I think that's been one of the things that I'm most proud about in the way that I've run my business and the way that I've shown up online is that what you see is what you get. And that's not as common as we would like to think in the online business world. I'm really proud of that. And I think that that's one of the main contributors to the success of all three of my businesses. And I can only speak for myself, but for anyone who's listening, who's feeling like the shoulds and the got to do this and that and the other thing, just be yourself. Mm-hmm. Like it's a very rare commodity these days, strangely enough.
It is. And you're right. The word authentic, I clearly stayed away from that, or even vulnerability, ever since Brene Brown, her work came out, like even the term vulnerability is like being abused in sales and marketing. So it's sad because actually these words are good words. It's just that the way we use them in marketing and sales have, kind of tainted them. So,
So true.
Yeah. Wow. I think this is a good place to come full circle. So I really appreciate having you share your expertise and failures as well, because I think that is so important for entrepreneurs to hear. So please tell us where people can find your book and your website and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me at heatherthorkelson.com. It's a bit of a mouthful, but heatherthorkelson.com is my website. I have on the front page, there are links to my book. You can buy my book on Amazon, Book Depository, basically all of the big platforms. You can get a Kindle version. You can get a Kobo version if you're in Canada. There's no audio version yet, but there will be. And if you're not sure if it's the right book for you, you can opt in on my homepage to get the first chapter for free. So there's no obligation. You can just check it out. If you like it, then you can grab a copy. And other than that, I'm mostly on Instagram and my handle is just Heather Thorkelson. I like to keep it simple. And I'm also hanging out more and more on LinkedIn these days. So you can find me there under my name as well.
Cool. Thank you. I always like to ask the final question, and that is, what are you grateful for today or this week, Heather?
Oh, I'm grateful that I have, in the middle of a pandemic and one of the weirdest times in my entire life, I'm grateful that I have everything I need. I'm healthy. I'm comfortable. I'm around people who love me and who I love. And I have the sweetest dog in the world. I literally, I have everything I need. And that is a huge blessing.
Thanks so much for spending time with me today.
Thanks for having me, Sarah. It's been really wonderful.
I really hope you enjoyed this conversation as much as we enjoyed recording it. And we're hoping that it helps you reframe your self-talk about failure. You can find out more about Heather at heatherthorkelson.com and download the first chapter of her book for free at I've done this name for so many times now, but the 2 TH, they're really difficult if you're German mother tongue. So heatherthorkelson.com/book. You'll find the show notes of this episode with further links at sarahsantacroce.com GBR96. Don't forget to send me an email to sarah@sarahsantacroce.com if you'd like to join us for free on this month's Circle Call that's happening on July 14th. Next week is a solo episode. I haven't done one of those in so long, but I figured since we're almost coming to the end of this show, I told you that before, I think, that episode 99 is going to be the last one. So I figured I would do one more solo episode, and I'll be speaking about customer-centric marketing versus the customer experience, kind of like what the two of them are and how they're so different. And this falls under the third P, the P of people, of the Gentle Marketing Mandala. So tune back in next week, and in the meantime, let's be the change we want to see in the world. Speak soon.